Yeah. That was the letting go was the key theme in what I shifted while I've been in this 3-month period of rest and productivity is I let go of a lot of things. And it simplified a lot of things for me. And what was interesting is it also clarified my marketing. Like my marketing message became clearer and simple sells. And what's happened is I've had a huge influx of new clients in the last couple of weeks because I let things go and there was space for more abundance to come in. So focusing on the letting go and then focusing on what's working and doing more of what's working in a space where you've got the space to do it is really, really key.
Welcome to Inspiration Contagion, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each interview spotlights transformational business leaders, their stories, challenges, and advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. Learn how you too can achieve peak performance, build more revenue, and lead the legacy you were meant to lead. All right, welcome back to episode 98 of Inspiration Contagion. This week I have a special guest with me. Her name is Stephanie. She's a classically trained singer turned voice and networking coach. After college, she moved to New York City and performed in operas, musicals, and the cabaret before creating her very badass business, the Empowered Voice and Empowered Business Networking, which, by the way, I attended. If you guys are listening to this, you know I am very picky on who comes onto the podcast. You should check out her network. It is amazing. For over 20 years, she has helped singers, speakers, and creative business owners leverage their voice for more influence, authentic connections, and increased sales. And you guys know we love increased sales. We have the money conversation every single episode. She wrote her own one-woman musical called Stage Dreams in 2019 and sings musical keynote presentations around the country for business-minded audiences. Whether performing on stages or networking, Stephanie's mission is to help entrepreneurs be the voice of their passions. With that, welcome, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me, Holly.
You are so welcome. It's a delight to have you here. And we're going to dive right into the juicy stuff. I want to hear, Stephanie, what makes you an inspirational leader, or what's your secret sauce?
Oh my gosh, this question can go really deep. And I was asking myself how I really wanted to tap into inspiration when we were having this conversation. And I think one of my secret sauce pieces is that I see the vision of how people can work together. And then I'm really great at getting them excited about working towards a similar goal. And the way that I do that is through the power of my voice, which is my whole brand and everything I've been doing ever since I was 3 years old.
I love that. Yeah. And man, the power of our voice is so important. I find so many amazing, creative, smart business owners who just don't know how to tap into that voice, or they make the mistake of trying to build their business, their nonprofit, their thing alone. And it's so much more fun when you have partnerships, you have opportunities, you have communities to support you and lift you up. Because we know it's scary for a lot of folks out there to share their story, to amplify their voice. It's one of the top public fears out there. So it's a pretty amazing secret sauce. Now, I kind of want to shift gears a little bit here, and I'd like to hear for you personally, what does inspiration mean to you?
Well, inspiration is not, I'll say what I don't think it is first, and then I'll tell you what I think it is. So I don't believe that inspiration is something that just hits you out of the blue, like a random bolt of lightning. I believe that inspiration comes to you when you make room for it to come, when you create the space for it to come to you. Because sometimes we get going and we're so busy and we have so many things on our plate, so many things we're juggling that we don't actually create the room for inspired ideas to take us to the next level. And so I believe that for inspiration, which is powerful, inspiration is extremely powerful, that you can actually create a practice around opening yourself up to be inspired, allowing the creative juices to flow so that you can decide what it is you want to do next.
Oh my gosh. I think that is now officially my favorite answer for inspiration. And I love how that's so practical. And
Yeah.
people, a lot of really amazing leaders, entrepreneurs, investors in the world that I meet who are multi-billionaires, and they're so busy. They're backing themselves into the same corner of exhaustion and burnout. And you can just see like they've aged in the last year, 10 years. And I think it's just like you said, it's about creating that space. How on earth do you know what's a good idea or an inspired thought that's aligned if you're so busy that you have no mental capacity or aptitude to actually hear that thing or energetically sense that it's different than all the other trillion ideas we hear every single day?
Yeah.
Because man, it's loud in this world, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah. And even worse is when you make decisions based on other things that are not inspiration. So you're making decisions based on fear or anxiety or what society tells you you're supposed to be doing right now. And that can take you away from, even further away from inspired ideas because you haven't given yourself the space to ground, to say to yourself, what is it I really, really want here?
Yeah, and it's so interesting that we're talking about this. We're kicking off a book project that I'm a collaborative author on, and the challenge was naming our chapter today. And you had to choose the one tool and one business strategy you're going to write about. And I'm like, my goodness, I have 20 ideas, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, hello, shiny object syndrome here. But I got on the call with my publisher and we got to it really quickly. And we got to the thing that I start with my clients with every time. Even though I'm writing a book on revenue, the tool is the life and business compass. And it's relevant to what you just shared because when we know our 5 life priorities and what success looks like in terms of actually living that way according to those priorities alongside our 3 business goals and our big legacy motivating factor, that thing that we are on this earth to do, to heal, to fix, to build, we stop backing ourselves into the corner and we create so much spaciousness and groundedness and ease so that we can actually hear universe, spirit, voice, people tell us this is that inspired idea that you should be going after next. So I'm so
Yeah.
excited we're talking about this.
Yeah. And I love that you tie it back to your passion and what you're meant to do, because I also believe that your passion isn't something you have to search for. It's something you choose. And so when you choose your passion and when you choose to be inspired, you have so much more control over what happens next. And it can take away so much of the insecurity and the fear and the, I don't know what's going to happen to me, because you're like, actually, I can choose what I'm going to do next and how I'm going to show up in the world.
100%. And such a great reminder too. I've been traveling a lot recently and you see all these people that get triggered and they're anxious and fearful and angry so easily. And one of my favorite shirts to wear when I'm traveling is to choose happiness.
Nice.
And it's like, gosh, you have the opportunity to choose happiness in every single moment, just like you have the opportunity, as Stephanie shared, to choose passion, to choose joy, to choose flow into feeling that inspiredness every single day. So with that, I want to shift gears a little bit and I want to ask you, how do you define peak performance and how did you arrive here? Because with that passion and that flow comes peak performance.
Yeah, I love these questions. When you sent these questions to me, I was like, these are really good, Holly.
Thank you.
Give me some time to really think about myself and how I'm showing up. I really think peak performance is about taking aligned action. Even if that action takes time, even if it's a tiny, tiny baby step, even if it's imperfect, if it's still an aligned action towards your goal, towards your vision, towards your passion, towards what you want to create in the world. And again, I'll say, what's the opposite of that? Like, what is peak performance not? Peak performance is not the procrastination, the overthinking, the over-researching, the I need to prepare to get ready to take action moments that sometimes we have. We're not in peak performance. I'd rather take imperfect action and be able to adjust as I go and learn from that than to get stuck dreaming about what I want to create and never really moving the needle forward.
Oh, so much wisdom. I feel like we are definitely in inspired flow today.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of, for our listeners, just pull out some ninja tips there. Yes, when we are not aligned, and I will say quite a few of the folks that I work with, business owners, speakers, authors, the first thing we do is life and business compass, because a lot of times the challenge is really they're building something that's not aligned to the legacy they want to be remembered for, and that's exhausting. When
Yeah.
and my mom, I call her Yoda when she has these wisdom moments. She says, "Holly Jean, when you're out of alignment, it feels like you're swimming upstream against the current." So today, to our listeners, if you're feeling like you're swimming upstream, you are having, like she just shared, procrastination, overthinking, over researching, you feel paralyzed with inaction, you are not in peak performance, you're not in flow, you're not aligned. Because when you are aligned, the action and the path forward is easy. And sure, like we just shared, there's imperfect action and there are going to be challenges because life happens, but a lot of it is going to feel easy and natural and organic. And so I love that you share that. This is such a beautiful response.
Yeah. And everything is course correctable. People sometimes fear making the wrong choice, but if you make a choice that you end up not enjoying or loving, you can just make another choice. There's nothing that says you're stuck there with that choice. So especially in business, right? I mean, there's always another option available to you.
Yeah, and that's a great point. A lot of folks that I'll work with, they feel like they have this like really weird checklist in their head. Like they have to have the website, they have to have the logo, they have to have the whole course created. And I'm like, guys, the reality is you don't have a business until you're actually earning money. And that means like, let's test this product. Let's do a beta launch on that. Let's build the airplane as we fly it. And yes, for you recovering perfectionists out there, I know how hard this is. I'm one of them. I'm with you. But if you want to have a business that grows, that feels great, that supports the market and pivots with your ideal client over time, you have to release some control and you have to take some leaps of faith and take that inspired action that Stephanie's been describing.
Yeah. Yeah. And change is okay. Sometimes people feel like change is scary, and it can be. And change is necessary to course correct. So if there are changes happening, that's good news. That means that you're in the process of course correcting. So embrace that as you're moving forward.
That's right. As I like to say, drive the steering wheel of your life. Stop letting fear take over. Put fear in the back seat, guys.
Yeah.
It's there to warn you, but that's it. You don't have to listen all the time.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, obviously on the road to peak performance, we talked about imperfect action. What are some of the challenges and obstacles that you faced on your journey to arrive at peak performance?
Oh man, there are many, many, many. I thought I'd go with very recent one just to show an example of even how in my current peak performance, I still am going to have lots of challenges, right? I broke my left ankle on February 10th, and it's been 3 months. And I'm still on crutches. I still have a boot on my ankle. And it literally put me in a immediate, more than a slowdown. I mean, I was stopped in my tracks. And I still had to show up for my business. I still had to show up for my family. And I had no ability. Even today, I'm still asking for lots of help. And what really I was allowed to lean in to the fact that this had happened. And I learned 2 things. Well, I reiterated 2 things for myself in this process, which is rest is action. Aligned rest is action. Intentional choosing of rest is still action and necessary. And because I created the space, again, inspiration only comes to people when they've created the space for it to enter. Because I allowed myself to have that space and that downtime through this injury, I received a lot of inspiration on what's the next level of my business and what do I want to do differently moving forward. And I was actually very productive over the last 3 months in creating, and now I've even launched my next membership that's out in the world. So you can face a challenge, and even though it seems like it's a major issue, it actually can be a gift to stay in peak performance and to just do things a little differently.
Oh, so juicy, so juicy. So, first of all, I'm really sorry, that you hurt yourself. But at the same time, I'm also not. There's a
Yeah.
song that's called I Wish You Pain. And it's about wishing somebody pain so that they understand how joy is so big because you experience the duality of life. And also because you were able to recognize that this actually happened for you, which is a very difficult thing, especially when you have limited mobility and you have to lean into asking for a lot of support. I know for me, I mean, I've written a book on this, and when I have new injuries, my family and friends are quoting the book to me, Holly, this really smart woman. And I'm like, yes, I need to take my own medicine, darn it. But
Yeah.
I love that you were able to face it, which is the first step in the fear method that I teach. Like, stop pretending that it's an issue. And you were able to create space for rest. And yes, to our type A's that listen, our inspired folks that are kicking ass out there, rest when it's aligned is important. And I'll share a quick story before we go to the next question here. But I recently burnt my fingers, two of the fingers on my hand, like right at the joint. And for the folks who listen here consistently, they know I'm a rock climber. So
Ooh.
I could have, in the moment it happened, gone down a rabbit hole of, oh, I'm not going to be able to climb for months, or I'm going to have permanent damage. But I've been doing a lot of work, and I was like, oh, it's probably going to blister. It's, probably not going to feel great. I'm probably gonna have to rest a couple weeks. And normally that would be really triggering for me. But I chose instead to say, you know what? My thumb on that hand has been hurting a lot. I actually think this is happening for me because I need to rest, and I've been pushing it so hard. I'm probably close to re-injuring something. So I'm going to choose this as an opportunity to just say, okay, we're going to rest for a couple weeks. And guess what? It healed just fine and only took a week off. And I was back today. And so, yes, we have to choose the right mindset, and you can choose to feel like something happened to you and you're a victim and like feel great, super crummy and not do anything. Or you can choose like Stephanie did and kick ass in your business while you're resting. Very cool.
Yeah. And it's okay to have both things happen at the same time. I definitely had some days where I just cried. I was
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, this is so hard, right? And I allowed myself to have days where I'm like, oh, I can spend the whole day in bed today and just remake my business the way I want.
So you mean you're human, you're not perfect, you're going to feel the things.
Yeah. Do the both and, right?
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that because it's so interesting. People have interesting perspectives and perceptions of what a life is like from what they see and what we present.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate is the folks who come on here, they're vulnerable and raw and authentic about the reality of these things. And yeah, I'm sure you had days where you were upset, frustrated, angry, all the things. Same. That's called being human. And I have to remind myself all the time that I'm human. I'm not superwoman. But I appreciate you being very honest about that.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, how have you created a culture of peak performance in your company today?
There's a couple pieces to this question. The first is I want to say I have had such a fantastic business mentor and coach for 10 years, same coach. And why that is really important is number one, getting support to help you help your community. You're not meant to figure it out all by yourself. And the other piece of this is that long-term investment, because she's been with me for 10 years. She's seen my journey. She's seen where I was. My original business when I first came to her was as a singing teacher. I was teaching kids and adults how to sing and audition for their school musicals. And now I'm working almost exclusively with business owners in their networking skills and their speaking skills. So complete transformation. And so she's seen that journey. And then one of the things I've learned from her that I then pass on to my own community is the power of assessment. So in peak performance, if you're not assessing as you go, you're missing opportunities to improve. You're missing opportunities to release things that are no longer working. And sometimes we focus a lot on what's not working and we forget to focus on what really is working and then build on what's already working. And when you're assessing yourself, so I'm always, every event I hold, I do an assessment where I'm like, what went well today? What didn't go as well? What did I learn so I can do something differently next time? And I really learned that from my coach. And so I pass that along to my community as well and encourage them to do a similar assessment in their networking skills and how they're showing up places. And so that, just creates a culture where we all are in alignment and we're all working towards, what's that next level for each of us.
I love that. Yeah, and continued improvement only happens when we actually step back and assess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting you brought up releasing what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
This year with all of my clients and just people I have run into, friends, new acquaintances, seems to be the year of letting go. It seems to be a thematic lesson we are learning globally. And so for those of you who are listening here and you're like, oh, this journey is really difficult and maybe you're in a downturn in your business, I would encourage you to see and evaluate and assess, like she just shared, what do you need to let go of to make space for more success, but also to make space for that inspiration. So it's more clear on where you need to head next. And then also the other piece that she shared that I want to highlight is a lot of folks in business make the mistake of chasing the next shiny object and implementing the next thing instead of assessing based on numbers and data points what's actually working. And let's do more of what's successful so we have a really solid foundation to lean on and to rest on and have peace of mind and flow. And then add that next new shiny object you want to chase. But do that from a solid foundation where you're really serving your clients in a really solid way before you layer on more pressure. Otherwise, you get busy and overwhelmed.
Yeah. That was the letting go was the key theme in what I shifted while I've been in this 3-month period of rest and productivity is I let go of a lot of things, and it simplified a lot of things for me. And what was interesting is it also clarified my marketing. Like my marketing message became clearer and simple sells. And what's happened is I've had a huge influx of new clients in the last couple of weeks because I let things go and there was space for more abundance to come in. So focusing on the letting go and then focusing on what's working and doing more of what's working in a space where you've got the space to do it is really, really key.
Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. I actually recently had a difficult conversation with an existing client and we got to a point where we just realized it was not a fit anymore. And that's a great, it's a great place to be. It's not a negative. It's not personal. It just happens sometimes. It's just reality of life. And I could sit there and choose to think something I did was wrong or, shame myself or be embarrassed or all the things that you could do when you're in a fear and a lack mindset. Instead, I realized and recognized this is happening for me. It's happening for him. And this is an opportunity for massive growth. And it's already opened so many additional doors. So perhaps today, if you're feeling like you failed somewhere and you're having to let go of something, try reframing that. Learn from it, of course, and up-level yourself as you grow as a leader. But consider all of the other windows and doors that might be opening on your behalf from that situation. Yeah. So Stephanie, I want to pivot a little bit and ask you, how important is the employee experience for peak performance?
Well, I technically don't have employees, but I do have contractor team members. So when I consider how I'm working with my team members, I honestly, peak performance is super important in order to keep the experience positive, to keep the contractors feeling like they're in their zone of genius, they're doing the thing that they love to do, and they are supporting your goals in a way that feels good for everyone. And I think a couple of pieces that helps keep this moving forward well is having consistent communication, consistent, scheduled meetings where you're chatting with your team members, and then really documenting how your team members are engaging in your business. Because as much as we love our team members, they do shift over time. And so are you someone who is really documenting your business in such a way so that you can easily shift and bring different people in if needed, when needed, and keep things going without a huge, hiccup?
Yeah, 100%. I actually just had a call with a client this morning about how this client in particular keeps onboarding a personal assistant, but then their zone of genius is in a completely different area. So then they move that person into that different area, but then they're not backfilling the assistant. And I said, I see what you're saying. And like, yes, we want to make sure that the people on our team, whether they're contractors, employees, assistants, are in their zone of genius, but you also need to make sure you're supporting the leader at the helm and not leading to burnout and not feeling supported. Yeah. So yes, you want to document the interactions, how your standard operating procedures are shifting and changing, the expectations of the value and vision and mission of the company, and make sure you're creating a culture where your employees understand that and are walking the talk and speaking the right language for your experience. Love that.
It's really hard to delegate when you don't document. Right?
Amen. Amen.
So I feel like that's a meme right there.
It should be a meme right there. I can't tell you how many people hire me when they bring on their first VA to help them document how to do email management, how to do their podcast and load it, how to do scheduling, how to do research and reach out for speaking engagements. And it's just not in their wheelhouse. And I get it. And if you're feeling procrastination somewhere, it's typically you need a who to help you with that so that you're in your zone of genius, which is equally important. Yeah. So Stephanie, with that, I want to ask you, like, how have you and your team leaned into peak performance to optimize your customer experience?
Well, I have two thoughts on this. One is I'm creating the customer experience. I think about what would I want if I was my own customer? Like, what do I want to experience as my own customer? And then using the team to mastermind. What can we do to make sure the onboarding experience is smooth, that they feel really excited to start networking, that we are supporting them with what to do, where things are, and all of that. And then the other piece of this is consistently asking my clients for feedback. So saying to them, hey, here are some ways that you can be communicating how things are going. And I have event feedback forms that I offer up as a way to do that. I have client assessments. I actually send a monthly client assessment. I told you the importance of assessments for me. So I send them once a month an email that is a really short assessment that's like, what's working well with my networking right now? What do I still want to work on? What could I be doing differently? And another piece of that is also to encourage my clients to provide me with celebrations. So this is a great way to get feedback. So if they are sending, I call them shout outs, and we share the shout outs at live meetings. And so if they're saying to me, hey, I really want to give a shout out to this person because of how they supported me with XYZ, that's great for, saying thank you to someone, but it's also great information for me because I can see what my clients are actually accomplishing, what they're really doing. So finding all those ways to get feedback so that you can assess and then you can improve the customer experience and build on what's working.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So it's interesting. A lot of folks, when we have calls and I ask them about their customer experience, and we find perhaps, at 6 months in, we're losing members, or 2 years in, we're not able to continue to support that continued relationship. When we see data points like that, there's something happening. And when we don't have continued feedback and communication with folks, we are guessing, we're making assumptions in a vacuum. And I love the specific examples you gave. And the shout out thing is so brilliant because who doesn't want to share their celebrations? It's exciting when you invest in something and you're having wins. And when we share gratitude in a community like that, it makes us feel good.
Yeah.
And it also makes people, law of reciprocity, want to give back to you because you were celebrating that thing with them. And it's a beautiful way to also, I'm sure, refine your marketing message as you see celebrations have trends across your community. So
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
You can turn them into testimonials. You can do all kinds of things with them too.
I know my marketing mind's like, oh, wait, you could do all these things there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we're going to shift gears and we're going to get to the money part of the conversation, which a lot of people are like, ew, money's fun. It's fun, you guys. So Stephanie, when have you left money on the table and what did you do to fix it?
Yeah. So this is interesting because I actually love sales. I am an action
Yeah.
personality type. I love sales. I love the microphone. I actually feel like I'm more in my zone of genius in a sales conversation than I am in most other kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And my biggest challenge probably is the process of following up. That's where I leave money on the table. So I'm really great once I get in front of someone and we're having a conversation and I can help support them in seeing if this is a good fit. And if they need more time or if the sales process is going a little longer than normal, my biggest challenge is what is the system I have to remind me to follow back up with that person or to nurture that relationship, to get to the level where it is the right timing or it is the right, way to move forward. So I think one of the biggest things that I have shifted that really helps me is I go back to where's my zone of genius? Like, where's my superpower? And it lies in the power of my voice. So, for example, instead of sending a message on LinkedIn or an email, I will voice text people and I will send a message and I'll be like, hey, so glad to, have you last week at our networking event. Would love to find out what connections were a great fit for you. Let's connect and I can see what else we can do to support each other. Something that is to the point, provides value, but is my voice, not them reading text on a page. And I find that that works really well as far as moving the follow-up forward a little more quickly. And then it's just a matter of me setting up the reminder system in place so that I'm making sure that I'm doing that, consistently.
No, I love that. And what's interesting about that is there's been a theme in the last quarter or two where we are doing a lot of consulting work with our clients on their sales process. And just like you described, you're not alone. A lot of folks, they'll be on that call and they'll say, Holly, they were a hell yes on the call and then they ghosted me. And I'll say, okay, well, what did you do to follow up?
Right.
Oh, I sent an email or two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Did you call? Did you do an audio text on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, or text? Did you,
Yeah.
schedule another meeting? Did you send a digital card or a physical mailing card if you have their address? Like, oh, I didn't realize I could do that. And you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so much more powerful when it's voice.
Yeah.
Most of the folks that they have a long sales cycle, if I have somebody who's not ready to sign up, I have closed clients 2 years later into the sales process.
Yeah.
And it simply wasn't the right time. But we
Exactly.
continued nurturing the relationship. And I'm usually sending more like audio messages similar to you because things feel more salesy in text, I think, for a lot of
They
folks.
do. Yeah.
And when they can hear the genuine like warmth in your voice, your authenticity, they're still more excited to continue the relationship. And when the timing is aligned, they're still hell yes. It's just the timing.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful you're doing that. But yeah, having those reminders, having that operating procedure to lean on is so supportive. So we don't get into lack or fear mentality.
Yeah. And they're also going to be more likely to listen to that audio message than to read your email. So your ability to connect with them is going to, just be a higher value all around.
Well, and it's so fascinating to me. It seems like a lot of folks aren't really using audio messages. So sometimes when I do that, it's like their first audio message, like, I didn't
Yeah.
even know you could do
Because
this.
I've heard that too. I've heard that too. I'm like, yeah, it's
I'm
great.
like, I prefer doing that to sending you a long text that you're going to misunderstand
Yeah.
versus my voice.
And it's faster. Actually, it's way faster for me to go onto my LinkedIn on my phone and leave a few voice messages for people than it is for me to type it out, all that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it feels more energetically exciting too, I
it
think,
is. It
than
is.
to type it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is actually more exciting for me to deliver a voice message for sure. I'm more psyched about talking to you like we were on the phone almost, right? Except you're not getting the response, but it's like you're on the phone. And I think this kind of goes back to the idea too that we don't use our phones as much as we used to. Like we are so connected to all these apps and ways of communicating. But the phone, and I love to set up phone calls with people instead of Zoom because there's a study done on this, when you're listening to someone's voice without the visual distraction of Zoom, like where you're like, does my hair look okay? Whatever. When you're tuned into the sound of their voice, it actually allows you to be more empathetic. So you can hear what's underneath the words. And so that underlying communication, especially if you're in a sales conversation, allows you to really connect with them at a deeper level and understand where they're coming from, and vice versa. So I always recommend that sales calls happen on the phone.
Yeah. Well, especially follow-up calls as well.
Yeah.
Because I think also the follow-up call, they're more comfortable if they're still considering working with you. You've built some more rapport and trust and likability. And so I do a lot of my follow-up calls I don't do my initial one because there's a lot of things we're showing them visually that they need to see with working
Yep.
with us for consulting. But the follow-up, where there are specific objections that are more emotional or mindset related or timing, we do phone calls. And I
Yes.
agree. That is a ninja tip, y'all. When you do phone calls for the follow-up or a sales call, if that works for what you're selling, it is more powerful because so many times when clients get on calls, they're like, oh, I'm sorry about the lighting. Oh, I look not great today. My skin isn't perfect. My makeup is whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm here to support you. It doesn't matter. We're not recording a video that's going live. But yes, power of voice is super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite questions, Stephanie, what is the next shiny object you want to turn into a revenue stream?
Ooh, so I am going to be doing my very first in-person networking conference in the spring of 2025 here in Maryland. And so I am putting together, what does that look like? We're going to have 150 creative entrepreneurs there, and I'll be selling tickets to this, and deciding what's the strategy around that event and all of those things. So that's my next really exciting project.
Oh, goodness. That's a juicy one. I'm excited. And we've talked about possibly working together on that. It's going to be super fun. And yeah, how cool to seed that on today's platform. You guys, if you love what Stephanie and I have been talking about, you want to email her and get on the waiting list for this event. You hear that? If you want to take action today and make spaciousness for inspiration, you want to meet some other really amazing, high vibe, badass business owners that are in the creative space, this is the event. Make sure you contact Stephanie. We'll have her information in the show notes as well as the notes for YouTube. Make sure you do that. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you, Holly.
Yeah. So we're going to do our last two questions and wrap this up. It's been an amazing interview. What is the best piece of advice you would share with others today?
Well, I'm going to put my networking hat on for a second and say, stop networking. When you go to networking events, stop asking for an introduction to your ideal client. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but instead ask for introductions to your ideal referral partner. If you make that one shift and you're really clear and your message is super clear and your ask is really clear, you will open up the possibilities, the visibility, the speaking engagements, all the things you want at a much faster rate and get a return on your investment from your networking time.
Oh my gosh. So this is usually rapid fire, but this is too juicy to just gloss over. You guys, Stephanie and I are so aligned, and Stephanie is one of my referral partners, and we refer business back and forth. We're new referral partners, but we met because when I network and I go to events, or we do even our LinkedIn lead generation, which we sell as well, we are intentional. This is the year of partnerships. Your ideal referral partners are going to help you amplify and grow your business faster and further and with ease, and they become super fans. So get clear on who are your non-competitive partners. They have the same client as you, and they do work with them in different ways. I do consulting work with folks. A lot of my clients need a lot of help finding their ideal clients, their ideal referral partners. So referring them to Stephanie is a great way to help them work their networking arm and muscle, which is not something we do. So it's a perfect partnership. Do what she said. It's going to open a gold mine for you. Amazing. All right. What's the legacy you wish to leave behind?
I want to leave a legacy for my family, especially my son, that he remembers that I was someone who courageously used my voice and did what I loved. Not what was expected of me, but what I really, truly loved. And that's really my legacy.
Oh, it's beautiful. It would be nice if we lived in a world where people act with courage and did what they loved, because I believe that what we're put on this planet to do is aligned to what we love. Mm-hmm. And man, if we did that, this place would be a magical world that we live in.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, it has been such a delight. Thank you so much for so much juicy wisdom, so many ninja tips for helping our audience today. For folks who are listening, we have links for Stephanie's Facebook, her LinkedIn, her YouTube, her website. If you want to get in touch with Stephanie, I highly recommend that you do. Learn about her event coming the spring of 2025. It'll be here before you know it. So take action today that matches the size of your dreams and opening up that space for more inspiration in your life. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me, Holly.
You're so welcome. All right, to our listeners, we'll see you on our next episode. Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. If the show inspired you, I ask that you subscribe and share it with your network. Let's spread inspiration together today.